Okay, so this is a 1 hour session. So welcome and hello, thanks for joining. We've got a couple of different presenters on this session. So we've got Natalie, backed up by Ben, who we're going to talk about Hurdle, and also Tamara Stewart from Shotton Hall School. So I'll be doing a kind of an intro, and then we'll have a summary at the end. I think everybody I can see on there knows me already, so I've either worked with you or you've been on a previous session or we've met somehow. So I'm always interested in learning and training and what we can do with it, and always want to learn more. So we're going to have a look at two different online classroom technologies. That's Hurdle and Teams. And we're going to have a look at what a digital classroom is, and how we can use these to your advantage, and also how to prep your delegates for these type of events. So I've got a few little screenshots of different organizations. So there may be people joining as we go. So we've got a kind of a widespread, if everybody joined. There's a couple of screenshots missing. I couldn't work out where people were from by their email, but there's quite a few different companies and organizations there. Things that you might already know. So we've probably all now done some kind of digital classroom event, whether we've been running it or attending, and that could be a meeting or it could be a proper full-blown training course. So have you had to make a choice about which tool to use? Think about how you did that. Have you tried to run an event and been disappointed? It's not quite gone the way you wanted. Have you had success and not really known why it's gone right? Kind of keep these things in the back of your mind. So pros and cons of digital classrooms. So first of all, it might be good to just define what I think a digital classroom is. So this is where people are not in the same location. They could be in the same building, but not in the same room, or they could be on different continents. So they're using some kind of technology to have that communication working between them, with someone leading the event and giving out information or learning and using that method. So we've got some pros and cons. Pros, flexibility. That's particularly key at the moment with the lockdown, although we're kind of approaching the end of it now. It's forced companies' hands into actually doing this, and without these tools, they would have had great difficulty just getting anything done. Mobile, we can run it on a phone, laptop, Mac, could be anything at all. No travel involved, lower cost, we can customize it endlessly, and it's global. So these are all good things. Potential bad things, and you know, you can disagree with me. Lack of control. So if I'm running a real classroom event in a room with people, if they're doing some kind of practice session, I'm always looking up at them to work out what's going on, see if someone's stuck, and try and anticipate things. We can't control that in a digital classroom unless we work at it. Learning styles. Not everybody likes screens and technology. So you've got to be aware of that as well. One of the things I try and do is offer alternative mediums of information. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Isolated or isolating. A downside of working at home all the time and never going to a classroom, never meeting people face to face, is it can be a bit isolated. So hopefully as things move forward, we'll get a little bit of a mixture. We can also have technical glitches. We're relying on the internet working for every single person who's on the event. Also, they need some kind of IT competency in order to install potentially a tool or connect to the right website, log in, and get across those issues. So networking is also another thing which could be a con, because we're not chatting over a coffee in between sessions. So if that's something that you think is important, you know, you could solve that by having breakout rooms or setting team tasks in between events. So the big question is, has the rise of the digital classroom changed productivity? That I'm a very positive person, so I can tell you now all the answers yes, but have a think about it. So yes, I can run classrooms globally from my home, and I'm doing that right now with the organization that I'm working with. I can mix students from different continents. One of the issues we've had is the number of delegates from some countries being quite small. So to run a dedicated event for 2 people isn't really efficient when I'm running another event for 9 people somewhere else in a different country. If I can bundle them together, it may be inconvenient for that 1 or 2 people time-wise, but it makes my life a lot easier. So if that works in the environment you're in, that is an advantage. I can easily record my training sessions, so an archive is available to the delegates. You could do this in a real classroom, and I've seen it done, but quite often it's not great because classroom sessions tend to be longer, which means someone's got to switch the video on and off on a physical camera and then edit it down and try and get the best bits. It's not always successful. You've got to worry about the lighting, you've got to worry about everything, whereas using an appropriate tool makes it really, really easy. And yes, busy delegates can review optional e-learning modules when it suits them. If you're doing a mixed media learning, then it could be a live session with a PowerPoint presentation like this, backed up with e-learning, which you require them to do before or afterwards, or maybe even during. So that's all available as an option. And costs are dramatically reduced. So I'm going to try and do a quick poll now. Have you run any classroom events? So if I go to polls and I'm going to launch the poll, hopefully that's coming up now. If it does come up, can you answer it for me? Okay, so it looks like everybody has done at least one, and the vast majority have done more than 3. So, by the way, can you see that result for me? Are you actually seeing the 14 people doing more than 3?
No, we can't, Tom.
Aha, okay. If I end poll, share results. Can you see it now?
Now we can.
Great. Okay, so that's an example of technology kind of biting me there. I wasn't quite sure what to do, but it's worked. Okay. So what I'm going to do is hand over to Natalie. So if you haven't already muted yourself, it would be a good idea to mute yourself so we can hear Natalie well. I'll stop talking.
Tom, your poll's still on the screen.
Is it? Oh.
I think we have to individually press close on our own.
Oh, do you? Right. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking. Natalie, if you just give me a nudge when you want me to go to the next slide, and then we'll work our way through. And Natalie's going to have about 15 minutes on a product called Hurdle. Okay, off you go.
Thanks, Tom, for inviting myself and Ben along today to talk to you all about Hurdle, which is a new software application that's been built really over the past year. But before we start talking about that, I just want to do a brief introduction of who I am, my background, and Ben will also do the same. So there's a quick summary slide here. So running alongside this is I've worked within the retail sector for about the past 25 years, I want to say, predominantly operational training and change management. I worked at Tesco head office for near on 20 years before moving to a training company called First Friday, which is where I met Tom and equally Ash that's on the call as well. During my time there, I was the training manager on their large ERP rollouts. So I was very, very involved at all different levels, effectively managing the rollout. Majority were Oracle implementations, but loved absolutely every minute of it. It was really hectic, really fast paced. And I love the fact that we got to see kind of the end result at the end of it, with obviously all of the users hands-on using the system. The biggest thing for me with any system implementation is that you can have a fantastic product. However, if nobody knows how to use it properly, that company is never going to reap the benefits of it. So for me, training, support and communication is the key thing with any implementation. So I met Ben 2019, I think it was, when I was working at Ted Baker. He stalked me last summer, shall we say, during lockdown. He then asked me to sign an NDA about this wonderful product that he'd been developing. And as such, I got excited because, you know, people don't often ask you to sign an NDA nowadays. So I had a look at the application. I was really, really impressed with the simplicity of it, and also how effective it could be. The delegate and the trainer is absolutely at the heart of the design of the product. It's been designed, you know, by trainers, so we know what we'd like to see there. And for me, the key thing that's missing for software training remotely is the fact that you can't really see anybody's screens as such. You know, we've got lots of meeting tools that we could use, which is great if you're running a meeting, but not necessarily for software training. And so I'm really excited to share Hurdle with you all today. Please ask questions as we go. And yeah, as Tom said, we've got about 15 minutes, so Ben and I need to keep to time. Once Ben's done his intro, it's just really to make you aware that obviously with some limitations and the logistics of Zoom, we're going to be showing you some mini videos today instead of actually going into the system. So it's just to give you a flavour of what Hurdle is, and then equally we'll be standing back afterwards should anybody have any questions at all. So Ben, I think it's over to you.
Brilliant, thank you, Natalie. Hi everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Ben. Tom, thanks a lot for asking us to come on this webinar. It's very much appreciated. So I'm CEO at Hurdle Group. Effectively, my background is I'm a corporate IT trainer, and that's exactly how I met Natalie. I was delivering training for Ted Baker. When I say corporate IT trainer, you know, I've spent the last 15 years delivering Excel, Word, PowerPoint, you name it, Microsoft Office, I've delivered it. When COVID hit, there was a real problem in terms of online delivery in my eyes. And I've always had this niggle in the back of my mind that, you know, there's a better tool to be developed for software-based training. I think meetings are very much solved. You know, we're on a really good meeting tool now. But when it comes to, you know, software training, systems training, it just wasn't quite there. I was a bit of an early adopter of live technology. I mean, in my training business, we've been using Zoom pretty much since it came out. It's a brilliant tool for meetings, but it just doesn't quite do it for, you know, the software side of delivery. So, you know, my kind of tinkerer in the back of a garden shed kind of attitude to try and, you know, plucky Brit trying to come up with a solution a year ago is when we started on the journey of putting Hurdle together, and I was very, very lucky to, as Natalie put it, stalk her and bring her into the fold and help you know, get her in to help me bring it to market. So yeah, like Natalie said, we'll go through what the product is, show you some demonstration videos, but suffice to say, it's very much a product that's been built by people who deliver. You know, that's really what it's been built for. But if I pass back over to Natalie, and she'll put it a lot more eloquently in terms of the, you know, the benefits and what Hurdle is, rather than me ramble on. So.
Okay, thanks Tom for changing that over there. So effectively, what is Hurdle? You know, it says what it is there on the screen in front of you. But for me, it allows you to deliver and validate software training remotely. Each delegate is given a virtual computer that is pre-configured for the specific applications that they will be using. So the standard package, it will come with all of your Microsoft applications. However, if you're delivering, let's say, Oracle or PLM training, as an example, that software would be pre-configured into the virtual machine for the delegate to use. effectively what happens is a user will receive an email invite. They'll log on to they'll log on clicking the join me link, and it will effectively take them through the system into the virtual classroom where the trainer will be waiting for them. Now, the key thing for me, the absolute unique selling point of Hurdle as a trainer, is that it allows me as a trainer and the student within the session, I can present, I can demonstrate, the student then goes into the software application and they practice, and whilst they're practicing, I can physically see what they're doing on their screen at that point in time. So I can validate their learning, which for those of you that work on, you know, large scale implementations, auditing of a student's learning is paramount. We need to be able to show due diligence that, you know, I don't know, Tom Harris took part in these 6 courses and he passed all of them before he's actually given access to the system. So for me, the validation really, really is critical, and it's key. There are 2 key points within the system. We've got a back of the room view and an over the shoulder view. So back of the room is effectively the trainer sitting there viewing your 6 or your 9 delegates on a screen, and you can see what they're doing, and you can also see when they're not focused. Everything is contained within Hurdle. So if somebody was to click away from Hurdle and, I don't know, maybe type a personal email, we wouldn't be able to see that particular email that they're doing, but what we could see is the screen would show that they're not focused. So it's just a little bit of a reminder, you know, to help support the trainer in that, you know, Tom Harris isn't necessarily doing what we think he should be doing. So you can offer a bit of extra support. Equally, we've got the over the shoulder view, which is where we zoom into an individual screen. We can take control of their screen. They don't have to grant access, all of these fiddly things that we have to do with some other meeting applications. And we can take control, we can offer support, and then we can put them straight back onto their screen to enable them to continue practicing. Some of the other things we've been doing since I joined in October last year, to make sure people know that we are kind of serious about the product and we absolutely want to bring it to market and meet all of the relevant standards of, let's say, some of the larger companies. We're currently going through our ISO 27001 accreditation, which is a bit of a hefty task. I do feel for Ben and the team that are working on that. That's definitely not my bag, but we need it nonetheless. And then a week or so ago, we did some penetration testing to see if somebody could hack the system. I'm glad to say that we didn't have any critical issues, and I think the handful that were raised, the team are working on, excuse me, this week and next. So we're in a really, really good place. I'm delighted with how the product's coming along. It's minimum viable product, but what we have absolutely does a job. And in terms of our roadmap moving forwards, you know, we listen to what our customers are saying, and that's predominantly what we based our development plan around. So I think I'll stop talking. It's normally Ben that I need to tell to shut up. I'll stop talking, and we're just going to do a 90-second explainer video that shows the concept of Hurdle. Thanks, Tom.
I'm Ben. I developed Hurdle to help me as a software trainer deliver better software training online. So what Hurdle does for me is I log in, and all of the students that are attending my session I see as a grid on a screen. But importantly, that grid doesn't show me the students' faces, it shows me the computer that they're working on. And I can watch in real time and see what they're doing. At any point within the session, I can take my screen and demonstrate it to all of those students, and then put them back on their own computer. So I can really quickly and easily switch between the student practice going. At any point, if a student needs help, they can raise their hand virtually, and I can, at the click of a button, take control over any of the computers of the students in the session and help them. All the way through this, we can talk to each other. So the students can talk to me and I can talk to the students, and I, as the instructor, have complete control over how this happens. And finally, the most important part of this is, within Hurdle, every student gets their own virtual computer, a playground. So this is a computer that is pre-configured to be correct for the training session, and the student doesn't need to worry about making sure they have the right software. It's ready to go. So Hurdle is a seamless, stress-free online software training platform. Restart your classroom today with Hurdle.
Thanks, Tom. Has anybody got any questions so far or any comments?
Does your Natalie, does your container allow for independent software installed? So if the class being taught requires an install of something, whether it's like an Oracle DBA or something, does that facilitate?
Yes, it does. So we have different solutions available based on the customer's needs. We've been able to access Oracle systems using Hurdle previously. So yeah, absolutely it can. You know, predominantly we are looking at, you know, some large system implementations, and we're doing a couple of pilots at the moment as well. So in answer to your question, yes, it can. Ben, have you got anything to add on that?
No, I think you couldn't say I couldn't say any better than that. It's a computer in the middle of Hurdle that you can install whatever you want on. That's
So how large will be the VM can be? So I mean, you know, how much RAM can it have, and how much storage?
So without, I mean, obviously we can talk offline after the webinar at any depth you want. But if you think of the VM as being something that can be spec'd based on your requirements,
right?
You know, it's hosted on a platform where it's like an Elastic Cloud, where the RAM, the CPUs, and all of that can be expanded or contracted depending on your needs. And it boils down to user volume. So yeah, no, Raza, it's what you're asking is very possible. I'm a geek, and I would sit here for 20 minutes talking about geeky stuff. I love it, but if you want to talk further, shall we maybe have a chat at another day after the webinar, possibly?
No, it was a general question, but this is good. Thank you. And in fact, I might reach out to you through Tom, so I appreciate the detail. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Raza.
Okay, cool. So what we've just done here is we've done kind of a bit of a screenshot that kind of determines the difference between Hurdle and other meeting platforms. And, you know, as Ben said at the beginning, there are lots of meeting tools out there at the moment that are excellent for meetings. But what we've found with the pandemic is that people are trying to adapt the use of a meeting tool to deliver their training, and it's just not quite doing, you know, what's needed. So just a quick comparison here. I mean, I don't probably need to read through it. I'm sure you're all doing it as I'm talking. If I can just move this box out of the way. There we go. That's better. Sorry, guys. So yeah, effectively, in terms of ease of use, it's the purpose to design, facilitate the system training. It's a really simple look and feel of the application. You'll see it when we show you a quick video of it. Everything's held within one screen. The delegates don't have to go off and, you know, click 3 buttons in the top right-hand corner to open up something else. Really, really simple and easy to use. Validation of learning, as I've already touched on, but that for me is the #1 unique selling point of Hurdle. Some of the things that Tom was talking about in terms of the pros and cons of the digital classroom, I think we've been able to mitigate quite a lot of that throughout the application. So it is a engaging environment. There are lots of tools built within it simply that you can see to keep the communication flowing quite nicely between the trainer, the delegate, but equally the group. And then, as we've already touched on, you know, we have this pre-configured training environment already prepared for the delegates, so they don't have to set anything up themselves. So there's none of this, have you got the correct Java, those kind of things. So yes, I've just had a reminder from Tom. I need to hurry up. I've only got 5 minutes left. So just a quick comparison. You can see on the left the Hurdle slide. It shows you the actual screens the delegates are working on versus other meeting platforms where you can only see their face, and as such you can't see what they're actually doing. Next video, please, Tom.
All
So this
course
is effectively
attendees are
showing
emailed an invite.
a
They simply
student.
click on their join link and they are directed to a download page. The application is clearly signposted with a green arrow. After the attendee has clicked on the app, it will open. Once open, Hurdle will perform some system checks, checking things like, do you have a microphone? Is your internet connection fast enough? Then the attendee will enter their name and once ready, click on the continue button to join the session. After a moment or so, their desktop will start to load and they will be able to use applications as if it was their normal computer and they can practice within their lesson.
Brilliant. Did that make sense to everyone? Has anyone got any questions about that? That's just sort of showing the from the student's perspective. And at the top, they get a virtual machine, as Raza was talking about before. And then towards the bottom, there's engagement tools. If anyone has any questions, feel free to mention. If not, there's another video about the instructor side after this.
I'm going to show you now the back of the room and the over-the-shoulder view. Now I'm currently in the back of the room view, which shows me all of my attendees in one screen, so I can see an overall picture of progress. If I want to go into the over-the-shoulder view, for instance, I might want to monitor what Sarah is doing at the moment, I simply click onto Sarah's screen and this will bring Sarah's screen full screen. I can see what she's doing in real time and I see it in a larger picture. And this is the over-the-shoulder view. Now, if I want to return to the back of the room view, I click onto the return button at the top. Now, the back of the room view allows me to highlight any potential issues within my course. So for instance, I can see Danny isn't really progressing through any examples. So I could, if I choose to, click onto Danny's screen and provide some support for Danny. So I might say to Danny, let me give you a hand. Now, I might ask Danny to do some steps, or I might actually say, Danny, look, I'm going to take control of your machine and show you a little bit to actually get you started. So whilst I'm in Danny's machine within the over-the-shoulder view, I click on Start Control at the top, and that now means I can actually move Danny's mouse, and Danny can hear me all the way through this. So I might go and open an example file. I'm just going to go and open this. And all the way through, I would talk through to Danny and say to him, you know, this is what I'm doing. This is, you know, how I do it. And then I might say to Danny, well, you go ahead and I would like you to go and try that example for me. So once I'm finished as the instructor supporting Danny, I would click Stop Control and then Danny would carry on and go through any steps that he needs to as part of the example. And I might even stay there and help guide Danny. But if I'm happy with Danny's progression through that example, I simply click Return at the top, and that then takes me back to the back of the room view, and I can see what all of my students are doing as a whole. So I can then go and support someone else within the session. So the back of the room view gives us this kind of holistic view of the whole session, all the attendees. And the over-the-shoulder view is the ability to click into any of our attendees and see in more detail what they are doing and provide support using the Start Control button. So that is a bit about the back of the room and the over-the-shoulder view within Hurdle.
Brilliant. No, thanks a lot for that, Tom. So the idea of the back of the room and the over the shoulder view, and we had to, because I mean, look, I could talk for ages about this because I love it, and it's my baby and it's Natalie's baby as well. So we had to pick a couple of videos to kind of show you a cross section. There are more features to this, but the main thing that we felt we had to hit with the product was the ability to, as Natalie eloquently put at the start, validate learning, see what they're doing effectively, watch progress and be able to jump in and help. But there are other things around engagement, you know, around raising hands, emojis, and it's really easy to present to all of the students as well within a click or so. But yeah, look, if anyone's got any questions, we're here to answer.
Yeah, I echo what Ben said. Thanks everyone for your time, and thanks Tom for allowing us the opportunity to share this with your kind of network, really. I'm conscious of time. Obviously, we'd love to answer any questions people have now, Tom, but equally, if you'd prefer us to wait till the end, we can do that.
Yeah, we've got a bit of time at the end. Just for transparency, I ought to say I don't work for Hurdle. I don't.
Oh yes, you don't.
Hurdle. There's no money changing hands.
No, we don't have any.
Yeah, it's a really interesting tool, and I thought it was a great comparison to Teams. You know, they're different things. So great, thank you both for that. I'm going to move on to Tamara, who's a long-term friend of mine, but a fantastic technology teacher and a big user of Teams. So over to you, Tamara.
Thanks, Tom. Right, Tom asked me to sort of get involved because he knows that I've been using Teams quite a lot of late with what's been happening with COVID, and schools were very much thrown into having to deliver some kind of learning to their students. So I didn't start off as a teacher. If I just start off telling you a bit about myself, I started off as a network manager after doing a computer science degree, and got a job as a network manager in a school. And my boss at the time needed somebody to teach 8 hours a week to secondary school children, asked me if I would do it. I said, absolutely not. No chance whatsoever. I do not want to teach secondary school children. But as it happened, I ended up helping him out a bit and absolutely loved it, and I haven't looked back since. In my current role, I'm sort of looking at the computer science curriculum across quite a large trust, but also I'm involved in the development of our virtual learning environment and how we can get learning at home, given what's going on in the world at the moment, and also how we can encourage kids to extend their learning beyond the classroom and continue to do their learning at home. And because we are an Office 365 school, I was tasked at looking at Teams and how we could try and incorporate that into our learning, because as you know, schools very much have not a lot of budget. So we didn't have an awful lot of budget, and we're already signed up to Office 365 Education, so we were looking at the tools that we had available to us. Would you mind moving through, Tom? Okay, so Teams, it started off as a business collaboration platform, and it wants to be a central communication hub for any organisation. Now, really, it's a lot more of a meeting platform, as Natalie and Ben were discussing, and it very, very does miss that whole point of where you can actively have the learners and see what's happening on their screens and help them. And with me teaching computer science, especially if, say, I was trying to deliver coding or the use of a particular piece of software, say Photoshop or something like that, I really did struggle using Teams in terms of being able to see what the students were doing live in front of me and being able to help them. So I think that's somewhere where Hurdle really has hit a niche in the market, in that I don't know of an awful lot of software that it's available out there to do it. But Teams is very much about those video and audio calls, those meetings, sharing your screen, scheduling them. And they're using teams and channels to help people organise their students or their delegates into particular groups that share interest. You can file share, and you can have integration with all of the other teams, with all of the other Microsoft applications such as SharePoint, Yammer, and lots of other things. They've got a single sign-on, which is really good in our organisation, because often we have children who, for whatever reason, say that they can't remember their email addresses or they can't remember their usernames or how to sign on. So that's really good. And I quite like that you can record meetings that you have, and you can get usage reports and statistics, which has helped us greatly because we have to report to the government on statistics of student engagement over lockdown. So that's really helped us with that as an institution. And just before I go any further, I do want to say as well, I'm not affiliated with Microsoft in any way, shape or form. I don't get paid by Microsoft. It's just Teams is a software that we've used to try and get that learning to the students at home. Can you move on, Tom, for me? So the basics then, you have a team, and that is a group of people that are together for whatever it may be. So it could be project work, it could be specific objectives, or in my case, it's different classes. So each of my classes are a team. And then you have channels within those teams that become collaboration spaces, and you can separate them out into different groups of people who are either working on something together, or in our case in education, you could have some SEND students in one channel, some gifted and talented students in another. You could have breakout rooms of different groups of students working together. Tom, will you move on? Okay, so there's the basics. It's just a basic outline. I'm not really going to spend an awful lot of time going through all of this, because there is a pack that I've put together that you can take. I think Tom's going to email to you guys. But this is just the front end of what Teams looks like. Now, as Natalie said, due to the limitations of Zoom, I can't really show you Teams in action, but this just kind of tells you what it sort of looks like. You can change the icons for your different teams so that they jump out into, and you can see which groups are which, and you get all your teams' names. You've got activities that show you any messages that have been posted in your different teams, anything you've been tagged into, assignments that have been set or anything like that. And assignments is a big key thing, which I'll talk to you about in it shortly, of how we have been monitoring and looking at student progression throughout lockdown. Tom, can you move on? So there's quite a lot of features in Teams, and I've only got a very short amount of time, so I can't really go through them all. But these are some of the things that I think are really, really key to being able to support with training when the students haven't, like Tom said, got you in front of them. So you can't look at them all and see what's happening. You can't pick up on facial expressions and see what's going on. And you can't see their screens. You can't see what they're actually doing. So private and public channels is really good, because you can have within your teams private channels that are for specific sets of people, and you can also have public channels that everyone has access to. So the private ones are quite good. So say, for example, you had a management channel within a particular team that was only open to leaders, then you can do that, or only open to certain students, you can do that. Immersive Reader is really, really good, especially for those lower ability students, where it actually reads out what's on the screen. You can meet now, which saves a lot of time, rather than having to schedule meetings. Or if you prefer to schedule things in advance that syncs in with your calendar, you can use scheduling. There's over 600 integrated apps from third-party software that you can include into Teams. But one of the things that we found in our school is a big problem with that is when we think about GDPR and the way that the different third-party companies use our data, and whether it's within Europe or within the UK or wherever it might be across the world, that's been a bit of a big problem for us. So there's a lot of apps that we haven't even been able to trial out because they don't meet our GDPR regulations within schools. And then you've got Teams Analytics, which is a really, really, I think, amazing add-on that you can put in, and it literally tells you which kids have been active, when they've been active, what they've been doing, and how they've been working. So very, very useful. Has anyone got any questions so far? Okay, so these things that are on the screen are what I'm going to very, very quickly run through. So you've got Teams channels and analytics, Immersive Reader, meetings, assignments, which is a biggie, and that's how we monitor progression of the students, and how we can use assessment tools that assignments has in it, such as rubrics, some different apps that I want to go through, forms, polls, and whiteboard, and then a few little extras that I want to mention. Right, so teams and channels. So as you can see there, there's an example of a team on the right-hand side in a picture. So that's a team. It's the marketing team. You've got a general channel, which is just where you would post most things and general things. There's then some other channels in there, and you can see the ones with the locks, budget and strategy. So they would be private channels that only certain individuals would have within the team could have access to. Now, I found this really, really useful, and just simple things like if I wanted to set a task for some students, I could individualize which tasks were being set to who and get different people to go into different channels to complete different tasks depending on their ability, depending on their learning needs, depending on whether they were absent for a long time. So I found channels really, really useful for separating off and segregating different people to do different things. And I found it works very, very well, and it keeps students focused so that they know they don't have to look at every single task or find particular tasks. They can just find the ones that are relevant to them and the information that's relevant to them in their channel. Can you move on, Tom? Thanks. So analytics, really, really good, a good tool. And the way that you get to it, oh, Tom, I think there's some pictures that haven't shown up there. Is there any chance you can flick forward, or is there not? Oh, no, perhaps not. Can we go back one? Sorry. So if we look at analytics then, it's a really, really useful tool, and it's very, very quick to do. You just go onto your main dashboard and you go to manage teams, and then within manage teams, you can select analytics. And what it does is it shows you the number of active users, the number of guests, how many messages have been sent within that team. And you can even look at individual teams and individual users across all your channels as well. Can you move to the next one? And here's an example of what you would see from that dashboard. So if you look there, you've got all your teams on the left-hand side, and then it tells you how many people are in that team, the guests, the posts, responses to the posts, what's been happening. And then when you click onto the individual teams, you can then change the channels and see what's been going on with those channels. So in this particular team, the picture closest to you has 16 users with 8 apps. There's been that many megabytes worth of SharePoint files. You can see how many posts have been, how many replies, how many mentions, and so on. And then you can click further down into individuals as well to find out what individual students have been doing and whether they've been engaging as well as they should have. Are there any questions at the moment? No? Okay, Immersive Reader, very, very good. It allows you to actually listen to things that are being posted. So when you've got those students who maybe haven't got as good a literacy skills as you would like, they can actually listen to messages. So you could tag them into messages and give them verbal feedback that way, or they could just read out task instructions. And often it helps them a little bit better than having to try and read it. They can just listen to any instructions that you want them to have. We'll move through, Tom. Okay, meetings. I've always used the Meet Now, probably just because I don't want to sit on a Sunday and schedule my meetings for the following week. And I also found that some students, if they weren't set up properly, it didn't go into their calendar and they got confused as to what was happening. Whereas if they know that my timetable lesson is then, and they can see when I click Meet Now, it ends up in the general channel, and they just click join, like you can see in the bottom right hand corner there. So it's a very, very quick way of getting all the participants or delegates into that session. However, obviously if you're doing it with a lot larger groups of people, it makes it quicker. You can just allow them into that. You can allow them to come into the team, and then it makes it quicker than sending out individual invites. However, if you do want people to have it in their calendar, that's when you would schedule the meeting. If you click to the next one, Tom. So that's when you would schedule the meeting. And just like you would in anything, you just click on Meet, Schedule Meeting, add a title for it, put in all the emails address, when it is and the time, and then you just click send, and then everybody would get an email and it would sync into any calendar that they had set up. Tom, can you go to the next one? Tom's just said 5 minutes, so I have to hurry it along. So, as I said, one of the big problems with this is when you're trying to use it, it's really, really good in that you can see sort of avatars of the students, they can ask you messages, you can interact in various different ways. But the big problem that Hurdle has got a solution for is that you can't see their screens and you can't take over their screens easily and help them, because if you've got, say, 30 students in your room with you, it's hard for each of them to individually share their screen with you, and you have to promote them to being presenters to be able to do that, and then you lose a bit of control and so on. So it is a little bit tricky to try and teach in that manner. So I think Hurdle's quite good from that point of view. But you can chat with participants and do the notes. Assignments is a really, really, really good way that I've found where you can check on student work and provide them with feedback. So if you assign tasks or work or quizzes to them, they will get a notification saying that they have this assignment and when it's due by. And then what you can do as a trainer is you can click into that assignment afterwards, and as you can see on the right hand side there, I can see if an assignment has been handed in. There's then a little plus on the right hand side you can see underneath feedback, where you can then look at the work that they've done and you can type them some feedback and return it to them so they can then respond to that feedback. Very, very good way I've found of monitoring progression of students. You can apply rubrics to save on workload and marking time, so you can share mark loads. You can share mark schemes or success criteria with members before they actually complete that assignment, so they know what the expectations are and they can self-assess independently before they hand in that work to make sure they've done it as requested. Can you forward on, Tom? Okay, so some apps, just like Tom did a poll in Zoom, you can do polls very, very quickly in Teams. So it's an add-on that you just add it on, you bring in a form, you create a poll, and it's so quick to do. It only takes minutes, and actually you can do that live as you are going. You don't have to set it up in advance, although you can set it up in advance if you want to. And you can also send those form quiz links to students by your assignments or however else it might be, and that way they can be self-marking, and you can set mark schemes on those forms as quizzes as well. Whiteboard is a really, really useful tool that has recently been developed, and there's a little video that Tom can show you rather than me talking about it. So I found Whiteboard extremely useful when I wanted all the students to sort of share their views and responses so that others can see what was happening and they can try and collaborate together. I found that really, really nice. Can you click forward, Tom? And then some little extras. So this is the last thing I want to talk about. So you've got something called announcements, where you can grab the attention of the members, make a statement, make it appear more important. So instead of you just typing and it be coming up in the general posts, you can make that announcement and you can make it stand out. You can highlight different sections, make the text a lot bigger, and you can actually tag that as well. You can have whole team mentions. So instead of having to tag individuals, you can tag an entire team and they would get notifications for that. You can give praise as they are working, which obviously students love praise, by using the badge icon. Insights I've talked to you a little bit about already. You can change your video backgrounds, because if, like me, you just, well, when I was doing it from virtual school, I didn't necessarily want the students to be able to look into the room that I was working from. So you can change your backgrounds to whatever you want it to be. And you can bookmark important messages or files within Teams to use later, so that the students, say, for example, you give them a link to a live document that they were supposed to be adding to, you can pin that so that it's always at the top and bookmark it so they can access it whenever. Right, whistle stop tour of Teams. Anybody got any questions? Well, I am around later on if you do. I'll hand back over to Tom now. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Tamara. Hopefully you can all hear me again now. Yes? Good. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, Tamara.
Great. So I'm just going to finish off with a few notes about kind of digital classrooms and things that I find. So a lot of it's common sense. Some of it is just experience. So I'm going to whiz through these, but I'm going to send you this pack anyway, so you'll have everything. So don't use stereotypes. So be aware of social, political, and cultural issues. You need to keep things as bland as possible because you really don't know your audience. You know, and you may never have met them, they may be in a different country. So you need to just be fairly neutral. Interaction is good. So the higher the degree of interactivity, the higher the yield of your engagement, which means they're going to learn more and remember more. Include challenges. Now, I don't really have any challenges on this one, but there's a session that I'm going to be doing, I think not the next one, the following one, where it technically is quite challenging. So if you can put that in, some people absolutely love it, some don't, but there are things that they can reflect on afterwards. Be a presenter who is visible and active. So that shows that you're kind of trying to connect with people and you're showing some care for your delegates. So there I am, I'm on video again now. Content is king, keep it short. I could spend hours talking about this stuff, but people haven't got the time to listen to it for 4 hours. So I've got to fit as much as I can in as quickly as I can. And a digital classroom is still a classroom. Limit the numbers or get help. I think you've still got 10, 12 as an absolute max. Anything beyond that, then I would need someone to help me keep an eye on the chat messages popping up, helping individuals. So that is just the same as if it was a real classroom. A few more top tips. Don't overdo the technology. It can put people off and distract them. Embrace new ways of giving feedback. If your video's off, they're not getting any visual clues at all. So they're not getting any body language from you and you're not seeing them either quite often. So you've got to think of other ways around that. One thing that Tamara mentioned was the badges. You know, you could actually give praise, give information like that, and try and push people ahead. Choose synchronous and asynchronous tasks. So for instance, if I've got a 4-hour course in a classroom, I can manage that and do that in half a day. Another way of doing it as a digital classroom would be to split it into 2. I could do those 2 chunks on different days, and I could give them tasks to do during the event, but also give them things to do between the events as well. So hand out assignments to them. Check your screen presence, test the camera and the lighting. Okay, so make sure they can see you. If you've got a very big bright light behind you, your face will look completely dark. So you need to have some kind of light, daylight or an artificial light in front of you. Shorten the session. I tend to go by this. A typical classroom venue event, if it's 2 hours, I'll cut it in half and make it an hour online. If I try and mimic a venued event online, it just takes too long. Be interesting. Okay, that's harder than it looks, but you've got to try and keep things moving along to keep people's attention and don't waste time. More top tips, enjoy it. If you're actually enjoying yourself and you look forward to doing it, people pick up on that energy, even though you're coming across the web. Set your ground rules, you know, make sure people are muted. You can do that when you actually create and schedule the event, but you can explain that to them. Any ground rules that you've got around people interrupting each other or whatever it might be, make sure it's clear from the beginning. This is a personal thing, unplug additional monitors. I at one point had 3 monitors running, and when I tried to do an event like this, I kept losing track of where I was and things were popping up on different screens. So now I unplug everything back down to the bare minimum, and I've just got my one laptop, my Mac that I'm using, and that keeps it nice and simple. Once you've found a method that works, just keep repeating it over and over. So I use Zoom. I'm quite happy with that. It works for me. Test the software and make sure that it can do what you actually want it to do. And not just with yourself, get 2 or 3 people to dial in on a test session and make sure you can share the sound, the video, handovers between people. You need to make that fairly slick. Include multiple speakers. So I've done that myself today. We've got 2 fantastic presenters. Really kind of shakes it up a bit, makes it more interesting. And designed for different learning styles. So include video, text, polls, and quizzes. And I'm going to try and do a quick poll now. Oh, how do I do the next poll? I'm stuck. Oh, I've got it now. Right, so can you see that poll pop up?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, if you could fill that in for me. Great. Okay, so we've got a lot of people on Teams, we've got Google Meet, we've got some on Hurdle, so there's a real mixture there. Yeah, okay, so most people have Teams. Probably Teams does fantastic business because it is a Microsoft tool, and a lot of people, especially corporations, have got Microsoft. Okay, thank you for that. How to use the features to your advantage. So plug all the gaps. If you're trying to condense things down and do it quicker than normal, then something's got to give. So what you can do is fill the gaps in with things like work instructions, quick reference guides, how-to guides. And Tamara's been kind enough to put a guide together on Teams, which I'll be sharing. Immediacy. One big advantage you've got is you can include information that you've just picked up on that day. This might be workarounds, bug fixes, new procedures, and that's very difficult to do if you've got a formal e-learning solution. There's a big loop around to actually fix your e-learning. The outcome of the event is its value, so always keep in mind the outcome. So the outcome really for this event was that you got a flavour of 2 different events and got some ideas around running digital classrooms. Use polls to gather feedback. You can't pick up the vibe easily like you could do in a classroom. And offer a video of the event. So I'm recording this event, I'll put it on YouTube and you'll be sent a link for it. How to prep your delegates. Use comms to attract the delegates. Now in a corporate environment, there would be probably a comms team and a training team that would promote the team. It may be that people have to do the training, or it could be, you're offering it out. I use Powtoon to do little cartoon videos, and I find that really easy to use. It's a fantastic tool, definitely something worth looking at. Use a professional mechanism to invite the delegates and do the scheduling. I use Eventbrite, seems to work fine. Consider activities for before and after the event. If you're, again, condensing something down, something's got to give, and you may wish to give out extra activities, before or after. Help them understand the outcome easily. Simple stuff. Do your objectives at the beginning, do a summary at the end. This is a kind of a contentious one. Consider offering material in advance. Corporates tend to not like doing this. I'm coming round to it, and I would rather people get a flavour of the material before the day, and they can come up with better questions. Also, ask for feedback after the event and flag up any future events. I'm going to skip forward because we're running out of time. Just quick couple of notes. The map is not the territory. Here's a map of a local landmark, Rosebery Topping. It's a lovely hill you can walk up, takes you about half an hour. It's beautiful, but the map is very uninviting, isn't it? So the event needs to be more than just the slideshow. It's not a map. We fill in all the gaps. Has to be something to make it memorable. People love takeaways. So not just burgers and chips, but digital takeaways, things that we can give them. And stories help make connections in their minds and help them remember what's going on. So for me, that map is pretty meaningless, but when I climbed it the last time, I went with a friend of mine. We had a fantastic day, and the sky was beautiful, and that's the top of Rosebery Topping. That means a lot more to me than just the map. Adding comfort principle. I did some work with a Reiki healer, and I was trying to work out how she did it. So I modeled her, and there's a bit more to it than just watching someone do it. But one of the things she did was put a blanket around people, even if it was warm. And so I spoke to her about that, and she explained that she always adds comfort in some way to whoever she's dealing with. Now, we don't wrap blankets around people, but we can give them takeaways after the course. We can make sure the room's in good condition. We can make sure the technology works. We can preempt questions. We can give them information. It's an unconscious message to the delegates that you actually care about what's going on. Creativity. I think this is one of the last slides. I was learning Tai Chi from a guy back in the 80s. He was fantastic, but I was always interested in martial arts, and I wanted to know how he would fight people using Tai Chi. And it's not really for that purpose, but I badgered him, and eventually we talked about getting into a corner and having no escape, and what would he do? And his answer was that you hop like a bird, because by the time you've gone up in the air and you've landed, something will be different. And I use that now for my own creativity. If I'm stuck, I'll physically hop. Sounds ridiculous, but you feel different by the time you've landed. So we can do that mentally, or we can do it physically. So I know I'm over time, so I'll be as quick as I can. Summary, we've learned about 2 different online classroom technologies. So we got Teams and Hurdle. We talked about what a digital classroom is, how we can use some of the features to our advantage, like we can record the videos, we can give people digital takeaways, and how to prep your delegates, giving them material in advance, making the conditions clear to them, making the invite clear, and the objectives. I'd like to thank Tamara and Natalie for standing up and doing this. It's great because I know they've put some time into actually preparing for it. And takeaways. There'll be a YouTube of this event. I'll send you a copy of the presentation. Tamara's supplied a more detailed guide to Teams. Natalie is going to hang around and answer any questions. There's her email address if you think of one after the event. The next event is a deep dive on Adobe Captivate, and the one following that in June will be a complete kit and method on how to do a training needs analysis with all the forms, spreadsheets for capturing data, how to do charts, how to finish it, and how to present the final report to your client. Okay, and thanks for your attention. I know it's a very busy time. We're straight after Easter. I'd like to really thank you for attending. I'm going to stop talking now. If anybody wants to hang around and chat to the Hurdle guys or Tamara, we'll hang around for a little bit. And again, thanks very much for coming along.